Welcome back to another episode of the 100% podcast with me, your host, Harry Purdy. Today, I'm joined by a returning guest, but this time he is here in person. My man, Brad Rix, is a business coach, mentor, fat loss coach, multiple business owner. He's here to drop some shit on mindset, business, and all that kind of good stuff today. Welcome back to the show.
Cheers, buddy.
You're welcome, mate. Long trip up from Bournemouth.
Yeah, to be not too long. I've done many longer, but it's always a journey.
It's a different focus, isn't it, when you come and do a face-to-face podcast rather than over Zoom online. I think that
you forget, like I said to you in the car, forget how much bigger people are,
yeah,
and how short I actually am.
Yeah, you are a short ass, mate. One short ass. Even when I saw you, I was like, "Fuck me, he's short." Anyway, bro, we're here to shoot some shit. Obviously, we spoke a lot about your history, your story on the previous podcast, and we've kind of got a rough guideline to go around how to let things go, how to not let yourself get caught in what we refer to as the victim mindset today. And sometimes when you speak to people who haven't had the fortune of having the coaching and the training that we've had, saying to somebody that they're stuck in the victim mindset can come across quite bluntly, right?
Yeah, it can be I think it can be very triggering for a lot of people. They don't quite understand. People have this word victim and they see victim as a very negative thing, and understand that actually victim is just a state. Realistically, being in a victim mindset is just you are essentially holding yourself as a victim, almost as a hostage to a set of beliefs, really, at the end of the day, isn't it? And it's like you said there, and a lot of people don't have the benefit to have the coaching skills. But even if you don't have the coaching skills and the mentorships or the people available to you, you can do a lot of this on your own. Like, a lot of my own discovery of delving into mindset, which got me into the level of thinking differently, stemmed from asking myself questions. Didn't necessarily come from what I learned from people initially, but I think that's just learning to disempower and disassociate certain words and meanings with the feelings. And I think that's a really important thing that we want to speak about today, especially when it comes to victim mentality as an overall.
Yeah, and one thing that's really important and I think key to speak about today is that victim mindset can get attached to so many different things, can't it? Can get attached to like weight loss transformation. It can get attached to how and where you are at in your relationships. It can get attached to how and where you're at in friendships. It can get attached to how and where you are with your mindset around your business.
Personal habits, daily things. It can be, you can fall victim to anything essentially, can't you? Really?
And I guess where we're going to end up going with this chat today, if I am thinking about it correctly, is that when you get hold of catching yourself, because I think that is the key thing to all things mindset, is when you catch yourself about to go into that mode of being like, oh fuck, this is happening to me, which we can come on to shortly as well, and switching it to be like, hold on a minute, Harry, you have that little internal chat with yourself, and you do as well. Hold on a minute, Brad, you're about to go into this mindset like this. Here's how we're going to think about it differently. And when you get in control of that victim mindset, in control of taking control is a nice way of spinning it, is when you start to get the greatest transformations in life and having a bigger impact.
Yeah, massive. I think it's also, if you want to label it in a Brad term, is just calling yourself on your own bullshit as well.
Yeah.
Like, we're all full of it every single fucking day. I think there's not one point in any person's day, even I believe some of the highest achievers and some of the people that are in the worlds that I'm within, do not catch themselves chatting bullshit on their own beliefs and certain things. And it is just the case of that you're not always going to catch yourself in the moment knowing that you're doing it. Sometimes it's not until you reflect later on things that you've said, done, or actions that you've taken that you realise, well, maybe I was a bit of a dick there. Like, probably could have reacted differently, probably could have thought a bit differently, probably could have responded slightly different. And maybe if I didn't do this today, I would have done better in this situation. And so it all has it's a compound effect, isn't it, of decisions we're making.
1,000,000%. And what I find interesting as well, speaking about the coaching genre and the industry in general, is there's a really mindful element of coaching. And I would say that even we touching on that with our beliefs and the way we are, yeah, of course, we're a little bit more direct with how we would like to coach people. But there's also that very kind of, I don't want to call it fluffy, but it can be fluffy, where coaches almost talk down on people like us who would say that you are calling out your own bullshit, and having more empathy towards yourself, and it's okay to make mistakes and all of those kind of things. Where do you sit with that?
I think it really depends on the level of intellect of that individual. When I mean intellect, I don't mean from like an educational perspective, but like some people are emotionally aware, some people are not. So we've got obviously emotional intelligence, right? Saying it's okay to be a certain way for someone that doesn't understand high levels of questioning yourself, your actions and belief, where they don't see there's no gray area. It's more black and white for them type situation, right? For certain people, certain phrasing, certain wordings, or certain things like where coaches say that it's okay, but it's not okay if it's something that isn't helping you move forward. Let's say, for example, let's lead into the victim mindset. Let's say there is an action that you are repetitively taking that leads you to doing something that is destroying your life, destroying your happiness, destroying your goals, and preventing you moving forward. If you're trying to get past something and you fail, saying, oh, it's okay, and this and other, that is not helpful. That's fucking bad. And any coach that is willing to empower that message and try and make them feel good in the moment, that is somebody that isn't coaching. They don't have the skill sets in order to help shift somebody's belief from here to here to understand it. That's a case of going, oh, I'll just make you feel better initially, and this will help you overcome how you feel right this moment. But you're not putting the facilitation in place to help trigger the response of actually, no, this is not okay. This is what I want to do. It's not okay to keep failing here. But rather than calling yourself a failure, it's like, why do I keep ending at this same result? What needs to change in order to do that, which obviously comes from questioning.
Yeah, and the reason that I asked that today is because I've seen a couple of things recently online, and you always think that when you see something that triggers your belief. So the things that I've seen online is around having empathy with your old self, and if I was to have empathy with the 23 stone Harry, the depressed Harry, the one that would just sit and fucking like play Football Manager for 12 hours a day, go out on a Saturday night and
Wank
drink
yourself silly.
Yeah, literally over Football Manager. Yeah,
Men in shorts,
Sorry,
not sure, mate.
yeah. Go out and drink 10 pints on a Saturday, Friday night, and then obviously be stuck wondering why I felt shit and looked shit. If I had empathy with that self whilst I was on my journey, I wouldn't have got anywhere.
Yeah.
And there's a real fine balance between going, okay, yeah, I've made a few mistakes, of course, and I made a few mistakes. We're certainly not sat on this podcast today saying we're perfect. And
Fuck me, I can't say anything.
Yeah. But when it comes to that element of having a shift, sometimes comparing your old self to a newer version of yourself and saying, here's a boundary that I'm not going to let myself, I know that's exactly what I do, mate. If I see myself slipping, as we've spoken about today, I still know I can be doing more. And that's why the whole shift towards new habits is so key for me this quarter. I want to play for a better football team than I've ever played for before. I want to get into better shape than I've ever been in before. And actually, when it comes to me personally right now, I'm not making this about me, by the way, on this podcast, but just it's a really good example. If I can't put that boundary and say, right, that's old Harry again now. Like this new Harry that's done this, that, and the other, inspired loads of people, helped loads of people as well, to go, right, next shift. If I don't do that, then I will be stuck exactly where I am.
Mate, it's funny you and me were speaking about this. It's the same situation as me. Like, I'm not a magical person. I'm not anything. And in fact, it's actually our friend Lewis that spoke to me. It said it to me the other day. I'm sometimes too self-aware, right? And that's because I've learned to question myself so much and question my beliefs that, like, if I ever find myself and question myself, why am I doing this? Why not? But then the problem is you can get to a stage where actually you over-justify your behaviors, and that's where sometimes you have to go back to that. Where is that boundary? Where is that line? So, like, I'll set goals and I'll set visions. I'll set out on a fucking mission at 10 million miles an hour, and I really get ahead with stuff. I'm a fucking high performer. I'm an exceedingly high achiever. But then if I get distracted or my attention gets diverted elsewhere for something that might necessarily excite me a little bit more in that initial moment, it will very much derail me from the boundaries I set myself initially in the first place, which will lead me to a different destination. And sometimes, although I'm not catching myself doing anything negative, I am actually catching myself from falling out of a situation I want to be in and what I set myself out from initially. So boundaries is a really, really important thing. And again, it leads into catching yourself in the moment with things that you say, things that you commit to, things that you want to achieve. Who do you want to become? Who do you want to become less of? Speaking with one of the coaching clients the other day, and it was like, what do you want to be known for? But what do you not want to be known for too?
Yeah. I mean, me and Sam Church, we spent 24 hours together on Friday with 8 hours in the car, etc. And into Saturday, and we were shooting some shit, and we were talking about the whole you are the star of your own movie. And if everybody had that mindset of just being the star of your movie, your life is your movie and you are the lead character doing all of the main shit, what would you, when it comes to a crossroads of decisions, you can identify and ask yourself the question of what would the star of my own movie do in this situation, or would the star of my own movie do this? And that can, again, when you think about it, with all of the subgenres that we said, mindset, weight loss, relationships, all of those kind of things, if you ask yourself that one question every time that you're in that stuck mindset, stuck decision, that's a really cool question to ask yourself, right?
Sure, it's mad actually. One of the main things that helped me in my initial fat loss journey, the second time round, because I think we spoke about it last time.
What's that sound, by
Yeah,
the way?
it's great. When I first lost all the weight, I did it obviously in a very unhealthy, fucking shit, terrible way. But when I actually did it the second time round, and I understood a lot more about what it is I was doing, and I was back on, similar to you, you know, close to 25 stone, had to lose the weight. I had to sit there and be like, who is it that I want to be? And I was like, I wanted to be this fit, confident, great-looking dad that picks up his kids at school. That it's going to sound really fucking bad for people listening to this, but I wanted to be the dad that all the fucking mums at the school look at and be like, he looks fucking sick, right?
Let's not have it right. Let's not have it wrong. Isn't that not what every guy?
To be fair,
Yeah.
But it's one of the things that I wanted. I was obviously in a relationship and stuff, but it's like obviously because I wanted to be a dad, and I'd always been like overweight. I come from obviously a really rough council estate with like lots of poverty, lots of fucking messed up people in the nicest possible sense, right? I wanted to be the person that stood out in the playground. I wanted the kids to, like, everyone to be like, Riley and Jaden's dad, look at him, he's the fucking, and I achieved that, right? And it was fantastic. Like, I ended up getting a lot of clients at the school, funnily enough, with all the parents as time goes on. But one of the things that I had to do during that journey is I had to sit there and create myself an avatar of who is Bradley, right? And when I'd be going around Tesco's and I'd be shopping and getting all my stuff, every item that I used to put into the basket that was for myself, I would literally have to remind myself and ask myself the question, like, is this the type of food that a strong, fit, confident, responsible business owner and father would eat and put inside of his shopping basket to elicit the results that he wants? There is no fucking grey area. It's black and white. It's a yes or it's a fucking no. So if it was like no, I'd ask myself the question. I can't tell you how long I used to sit there in shops because I set a rule of just every question. And even though it sounds like a bit stupid, there's certain stages of your life that you do you have to find questions and catch yourself in moments and ask yourself the question, because your brain will override and justify it straight and go, yeah, but you like it. Oh, it's not so bad. Is this? No, fuck off. Like, my question is this something that I want for the result that it is I get? And would that type of person do it? And there's something that we've both learned many, many times over through the circles that we're in. And it's like, what you need to put yourself in a position of like, not how do I achieve this? Like, if I want to be this person, how do I achieve it? It's what habits and behaviors do I need to adopt that this type of individual does to be that. So rather than trying to work towards it, do the actions this person takes, and the journey becomes the byproduct. So leading on to what we speak about, like, just to touch on the weight loss element, I always say and we speak about this a lot of people come for fat loss. Let's use fat loss as an example. That's my main premise, and it's both of the journey that we've both been on immensely at the same time, right? And it's like, most people come to you and they're like, why do you want to lose weight? Because I want to feel better. Okay, cool. Key word there. I want to feel better. Yeah? I want to feel better. So why the fuck do you think weight loss is going to elicit that response? You know, and a lot of people seem to think, well, when I look better, everything looks good. We've got social media to blame for that, movies to blame for that. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've got fat guys and girls everywhere that are actually confident as fuck, and they're absolutely buzzing with life, right? Their body weight, everything doesn't, determine how they sit there and think and feel, because they have worked on the inner work to be confident and happy with who they are, right? And there are a lot of people like that. And then there's a lot of body positivity fake bullshit out there at the same time, and people convincing themselves. But one of the things that I always have to say to people, you have to work from the neck up and then the shoulders down. You cannot be a happy individual by having a great body. When I was in my peak best physical shape ever, I was the most depressed and suicidal I'd ever been.
Yeah, which is insane.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And it's like, and I don't have many pictures of that because I actually hated how I looked so much. It was funny, you just go from a camera roll and I found somewhere I was close to, like, veins on the abs, bits and bits. But I fucking hated how I looked, so I rarely took pictures. I was going through.
What was going through your head then when you hated how you looked? Was it just that you looked at yourself and you thought, oh, I'm too thin now?
I attached the notion. No, because I was fucking in great shape, mate. Like, great muscle bellies, like, very rounded, very full, this, that, and the other. But I was so attached to when I look a specific way, when the scale weight is a specific weight, I will suddenly feel like X. And considering my background, which I spoke about some of it on the last pod, and we'll touch a little bit on it here today, coming from so much trauma and not being worthy and being beaten and told you're a piece of shit and that you was a mistake and you were never wanted, like, you're drawn into thinking that you are worthless. So I attach my self-worth to when I look a certain way, when I am a certain way, I'll be it. And what's mad is getting attention left, right, and center. Everywhere. Gay guys, like women, like attention everywhere. But I was so blind to it because I was convinced I was worthless because I didn't feel a certain way. And what's mad is I actually looked the way that I'd set out initially, but I still didn't feel a certain way, so I assumed that I still didn't look how I needed to be.
Crazy.
And it's such a big thing about like how when people want to lose weight, leading to what we were saying, is they want to feel a certain way. So the way that my philosophy is always with coaching is, neck up, shoulders down. Let's work on the habits and behaviors that help you feel better. Fat loss becomes the byproduct. Rather than let's eat to lose weight, let's exercise to lose weight, let's do our journaling, our meditation, our headspace, our fucking steps, or whatever daily habits that are individually routine for that specific person. These are not to elicit weight loss. This is to elicit you having more energy, buying back your happiness, your like time, like your mental clarity, your mental freedom, your mental space. Fat loss becomes the byproduct as a direct result of that. So it's like you've really got to work on them questions and what you want. You know, kind of like lost on a bit of a tangent, but you get the whole point of it. It's
totally
like
get it.
when we're trying to figure out like what we'll do, it leads down into that question. Like, do I want to feel better or do I want to lose weight?
Yeah,
you want to lose weight, but the initial thing is you want to feel better.
Yeah, you said in your question in there, but if you were to be speaking to a client, it's that you want to feel better. All of those actions around weight loss, and this is why I specifically say in my coaching group, you cannot just focus on the weight loss. Yes, that can be one of the things that you're working towards, but if you solely focus on that number and your relationship to gravity, which is exactly what it is, then it's going to become monotonous. You're going to lose faith in yourself because it's a slow process if you're doing it in a controlled manner. And if you are training hard, you're building muscle alongside losing body fat. Although the scales may not be justifying that you're losing weight, you may be looking fucking way better than you previously were without really thinking about it if you're only focusing on that
I think
weight.
it leads back down to that whole mind, that chimp paradox mentality of like having a chimp brain and a logical brain. Like the more data points that it is that you collect on progress, that's not metric based in terms of the gravity and measurement wise and picture wise. Am I sleeping better? Am I more present with my partner? Do I have a better relationship with my kids? Are they arguing less? Is the rest of the family less? Is it less hostile? Am I having more sex? Like, am I happier? Like, there's so many different levels of metrics that not all of you can track with a specific number, but you can create like your own gauges and metrics around that. And so, like, depending on like, this is where tools come into play massively. And this is where I'll give a little shout out to Lewis, our friend Lewis Potts, running the Adherence Amplifier, especially for a lot of coaches. When it comes to the whole learning tools to track behaviors, metrics, and look for other levels of happiness, he really kills it with giving people tools like that, which I think a lot of coaches need, because if a lot of coaches had this, the people that we deal with on a day-to-day basis would be getting much better help in actually understanding these behaviors and habits at the same time, because it's all about having tools to know how to track.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Speaking of Lewis, we previously mentioned it when we were having a drink. He posted today around, there's, again, speaking about the industry and like questionably, I'm sure there are some things that I've been questioned on before. I'm so sure there's things that you've been questioned on before. Yeah. But he mentioned at the minute a bit of a trend of coaches coming into the industry, almost diagnosing people with stuff. And for me, as somebody who's come back from mental health challenges where I was associating myself with certain things, certain feelings, labeling myself as anxious, labeling myself as depressed, I know that labels, when it comes to mental health and how you're feeling and what you're attaching yourself to, can be insanely dangerous. And I believe from the bottom of my heart that when somebody comes into your coaching business from a mindset and weight loss perspective, because normally if somebody's quite overweight, there's normally going to be, and I say normally, going to be some kind of mental health attachment there too. The quicker you can get them away from those labels, the better. And to have those people coming into an industry diagnosing, maybe without qualifications, maybe without the right intention to leave people stuck more, is more of a dangerous thing for our industry than it can be beneficial.
Yeah, there's something that I speak about quite often. Don't unbox something that you cannot put back together. Don't unbox something that you don't know how to deal with once open, because you can leave people more damaged than ever. And I think the reason why the coaching industry is going into such a fucking bad place with people doing this diagnosing is everybody's just trying to be different. Everyone's trying to be special. And I can't remember who I was speaking about this with. And it was like, everyone is trying to fit the narrative of everything. Now, once upon a time, if you wanted to get in shape, you'd have a PT. then you'd have a nutritionist.
Yeah.
And if you're working on your mental health, you'd have a therapist or a counselor or a practitioner specifically in some form of cognitive behavioral therapy or something along those lines, right? Now every coach and every Tom, Dick and Harry is trying to do it. I think as a coach, you have a responsibility to know your boundaries, again, where they lead into. As a coach, you have responsibilities, yes, if you really want to help people. Because let's be honest, most coaches don't really get into it for money. Most coaches get into it because they want to help people. That's initially what you come to. Let's not talk about business mentors now making everybody think that they need to make a lucid, stupid amounts of money. But it is actually
Stood in front of somebody else's Lamborghini.
yeah, exactly, right. But it is actually all about, like, everybody got into it initially because they're great people and they want to help people 99% of the time, right? And the problem is too many people step out of their zone of genius in order to help people. You've got performance athletes that know how to strength and condition someone to peak physical condition into like powerlifting competitions or performance-based hybrid competitions, like whatever. But then they're trying to also help people with their level of mindset when they've never struggled themselves. And I don't think anybody should be trying to help anybody in any form of anything to do with mental health if they haven't got some level of experience or relatability, because to have empathy for a lot of things, you need to have understanding. Otherwise, you've just got sympathy.
Yeah.
And I think sympathy is a bad thing. Empathy is a fantastic thing in the sense of because you actually understand. And it's something that I've made mistakes with this before in the past because I've worked with people that are probably a little bit out of my spectrum. And I'd be lying to say I'm fucking perfect. And I haven't done that many times because I naturally want to save people. But I am also very careful and I've always been very cautious to make sure that people are, pushed to the right places, pushed to the right areas. I think it's something that's really helpful. But mental health, I was speaking to this. I've been speaking a lot about a lot of things lately. I'm very much in this kind of like, I almost feel like us guys need like, girls have like, we are in our hot girl era. I feel like us guys need like something like that. Yeah, I'm in my deep thought philosophical era, like whatever that is. But I think the problem is at the moment, right? As more and more people are becoming open about mental health, speaking about mindset, speaking about stuff, it's fucking brilliant because people are being more open. But now it's just becoming a hot trend and a hot fucking topic. Everybody has mental health levels. Not everybody has mental health problems. Just like some people are in physically great shape at sometimes, and sometimes they're not. Some people are physically, energetically charged because they're working on themselves. Our mental health also has a gauge. We are in fucking great mental capacity and resilience, so we can withstand lots of stuff and everything's going great and we're happy and we wake up with a fucking bounce and our stuff. And we got some days where like we don't want to fucking wake up. And then we got some days, and even myself to this day and age, where I don't really have problems. Some days I still wake up and I'll have suicidal tendencies. Doesn't mean I'm going to act upon it. It's a thought, it's an emotion, and you just got to be aware of it, right? I think this is me speaking on my own behalf, but I think anyone that says they do not every now and then when they suffer with something have thoughts and processes like that are semi-full of shit.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's the way that our brain and emotions work, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. And a lot of people, I think, are worried to speak about that because like, don't want to be like, oh, I feel suicidal. There's a difference between having suicidal tendency thought processes and like actual actionable steps that you're taking, and that comes from obviously being very self-aware.
I agree with you. When I was at my lowest, I would have. My fear would be it would be like that knock-on effect of going into worst case scenario, catastrophizing thoughts. So if I was feeling anxious in a day, my brain would go, that means that you're going to be depressed. And then if you get depressed, you're going to then commit suicide. It was never did I ever think that I was going to commit suicide. I would just be like, if you don't get a handle on this, this is what's going to happen. Because you see that like, the trends and the news, and it's what people talk about. Get anxious, get depressed, don't talk about it, commit suicide. That's like the kind of the trend of what is spoken about.
Our brain recalls it all, doesn't it? What's spoken about, what we hear, what we see, it goes into our brain, and it's a feedback.
I remember being on the phone to the GP because I spoke to my mum. Like my mum and my dad were like very much involved in this period in my life where things just something wasn't right, and obviously I needed to get back control of my life and where it was going, and thankfully I've been given the tools and put the work in to be able to do that. I remember being on the phone to the doctor, like literally, like I spoke to him, he was like, what's wrong, mate? And I was like, I'm thinking about having thoughts about suicide, but I'm like not gonna do it. I just don't know why I'm thinking about them. And like almost like laughing, but I know it's really not funny, but I was literally like, I'm not going to act on them. This is what I'm thinking. And then because I was thinking about them, it was making me upset. But it was because if I was to break it down as to why I was doing it, I wasn't in control of my physical health at that point. I'd got better, but wasn't in control of my physical health. I was fucking bored, and I had nothing that I was working towards. all of those three things, not just for men, but for human beings in general, if you're not in control of your physical health, not working towards something you care about, and aren't taking control of the direction your life is going, you will probably encounter some kind of mental health challenge because you are bored.
You think about it, it's like devil makes work for idle hands. Yeah, you're either creating problems or you're solving them.
I've never actually spoke about that on the pod, and when I think about that now, it like
mate, it's like, mate, well done for one. Like, I'm just gonna have to well done for opening up and actually speaking about it again for it to go out there and stuff. And so I think sometimes, like, you know me, I don't mind being vulnerable. You can put me in the deep stuff. I'll cry on here if I need to. If like, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to show that thing, and it can be a very difficult thing because it can bring up a lot of stuff. And mate, similar situations to me, but I did try and take myself a few times,
I remember
right?
you speaking about it. Yeah,
but then even after I'd got out of that stage, what you're explaining there, it took me a long time to understand, like, why do I still have these thoughts? I'm not going to do it, but why do I still have these thoughts? I know I don't need to go and do this. I've got nothing really necessarily to need to go, but why do I do it? And similar to you, like, you kind of like laugh off because you're just like, but it's like, it's more a case of almost learning to detach yourself from like, what is your brain thinking and what your brain thinking. That isn't all, that's not you.
Yeah.
Like, it is like you've got like a separate entity at the same time. It's like a bit of an alter ego. The difference is my alter ego doesn't dress up in drag. But it's like, you know.
Mine does. Oh, wait, no.
Well, after you say we're football manager in 24 hours with Sam, I'm not too sure now. But no, but it's one of them things. It's like mental health, I think, is a very big buzzword, and I'm sure there's a lot of like my mindset friends and our mindset friends and people in the coaching space in that realm would kind of agree. There's too many people that are just trying to, because it's become relevant, more people are speaking about it. And do you know, some of the people that do more damage than good are the people that are like, my inbox is always fucking open. Shut up, is it? Because you say that, and there'll be someone that will fucking drop you a message and you don't miss it, or you don't know how to act on it because you're just trying to be nice because you're like, I will help if you need someone to speak to. Sometimes that actually engages in these people to be fucking worse. They need safe spaces and opportunities to speak and do stuff. Like, what I was saying there is like, we either solve problems or create them. Anyone that I've come across in my career, in my life, in my personal life, and as you know, I've been around a lot of, it isn't just that I had a bad lifestyle, that my mum and dad were like drug addicts and this and that. Like, I got like 7 aunties, 4 uncles, all raped and abused by their own dad, right? Like, half my family in jail, half of them are still drug addicts in really bad ways. Like, I'm the only person in my family that broke the mold, and then the ones underneath me, like my brother and so forth. I'm the only one, and they all still like it. I went to see my mum for the first time, and I haven't seen her in a year, right? And I seen her the other day, and fuck me, she just looks horrendous. She's aged so bad. And bear in mind, my mum was a drug addict for a year. She had me when she was 17, right? Just turned 18, like literally like a couple of weeks beforehand. And so she had me quite young. And even though she was a drug addict, most drug addicts age really badly. My mum, people used to think that she was my sister, right? Sometimes if we had pictures together, people actually thought we were like a couple, and that's really fucking creepy having messages like that, right? And I hadn't seen her in a year. And although she's not a heavy drug addict anymore from like illegal substances, she's actually just as much of a drug addict with pharmaceutical drugs from all the problems that she's caused as a direct result of, right? Like off her head on codeine and all sorts of stuff. But what I'm trying to get is, she is aged so tremendously bad, and I only managed to spend 15 to 20 minutes with her with positiveness, her being happy, seeing what I've been up to lately and this, that, and the other, before it turned into straight negativity, problems, this, that, and the other, because of the catastrophizing consistently of situations and being in a negative mindset. So what I'm trying to set there with like the whole mental health spectrum, the more you repeat certain things and behaviors and you've got people say they're going to help you, you can also elicit a lot more worse stuff. So like for someone like my mum, for an example, somebody's like, oh, Lucy, like, let's just have a chat, you know, like, you're just actually eliciting and giving her a safe space to make her situation worse. Because you're giving her an opportunity to speak and feed the monster, feed the problem.
Feed the victim mentality.
Mate, yeah, feed the victim. Like, that's literally what you get an opportunity to. And it's like, the biggest problem with, like, I think with victim mentality is you give yourself, if you give the victim too much opportunity to speak, it will get worse. It will get stronger. It will continue.
Almost like an override, isn't it? It's like you've got, like you said, you've got your alter ego and your sense of self, you.
Mate, I'll have to look at the stats. I can't remember what it is, and I can't remember who it fucking spoke about. It was on an interview that I listened, and it was to do with a psychologist dealing with like recalling behaviors and memories and trauma, and it was something ridiculously high. Like, it must have been in the 70%, but it was like something like 70% of the memories and things that we recall from trauma-based related aren't true. We've made it up because we've amplified the story to fit the narrative of when we spoke to people, when we've done it, we've added to the emotions. Or not only that, let's say, for example, you're in a bad headspace, and I go, Harry, you're a cunt. Right? You laugh at it because I call you it anyways, right?
Yeah.
You're laughing at it. But if you're in a bad headspace, your voice, your inner self is like amplified that and made out like so much worse that if you go and repeat that to someone or say something, You've planted a memory in your head of something amplified based upon an emotion that you had at that very moment when that situation happened. 10 years later, you're remembering that at like a much higher perceived volume than what it actually was, because how you perceived it in the notion. It was quite mad learning about it, because he was actually speaking about a lot of past trauma victims. I can't remember what the doctor was called, the psychologist was called, but he was actually saying when they actually recalled and go through lots of stuff, this, like, and they done tests where over like a 10-year period of time, they asked people the same stories of stuff that they'd been through, and every time it amplified. And you know what's really wild? I had to start asking myself questions about my past because of obviously how much was in there. I was like, how much is that true? And do you know what? You can't actually, like, sometimes I look at it and I'm like, yeah, my past was bad. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no denying it, right? There's a lot of fucked up shit I shouldn't have gone through, shouldn't have had to go through, did. It is what it is, and I'm sound with that. But sometimes I actually question myself and I'm like, how bad was it? Like, have I actually made some of that stuff up? The events I've not made up, but I've amplified how bad that possibly is because of why I was young and growing up and the way that I felt as a human being. Because let's say, for example, you've gone through, but everyone's gone through a bad breakup when they're a kid, right? Like the partner's called them something fucking horrible. That shit scars you for life. You hold on to that for fucking ever, right? But when you actually think, someone said that to you now, you're like, oh, fuck off.
Yeah.
You know, it's...
Well, I mean, like, from my own situations that you know about, that came later in life, and it didn't take me... It didn't, in comparison to some people that you hear about being completely and utterly stuck in a really, like, unhealthy situation for a long period of time, can really damage them moving forward if they don't do the work and like recuperate afterwards and do the recovery and work on themselves and all those kind of things. I mean, a year of your life can go really quickly if you're fucking, like, if you're over analyzing and being stuck in it. But sometimes you've just got to take the, like, pull the plug and pull yourself out of those situations. And what you're talking about now actually, like, resonates with what we're talking about. So I had Dax on the pod, the most recent episode we spoke a little bit about a lot of stuff, but one of the stories he said in regards to, I don't know if you know Dax's story, his stepdad, he had to stab his stepdad, like, to defend his mum when he was a kid. And I said, how is it that you've been able to go on and move away from that story and become what you've become now? And he basically said you could have two siblings brought up in the same household where potentially there's some domestic abuse or alcohol, violence, whatever. One sibling grows up and they attach themselves to the story with the narrative, I am going to act this way because I never want to be like that situation in my family. And the other one can grow up and get into a relationship, get married, and be the person that creates the domestic violence in that household. And they use the narrative, well, that was obviously going to happen because I grew up in a household where that happened in my childhood. So you've got two people brought up in the same household with, obviously this is a very, I'm sure it's actually happened in life, you could probably give examples of this, but you have been brought up in that household environment and you have decided to go, fuck that, I'm going to be this.
Mate, I'm going to actually tell you that. It's mad that you said that because I actually don't think I've spoken about this. So, similar, but I didn't stab him up. Lots of abuse that I got, lots of beatings from one of my mum's boyfriends that she was with, right? And it wasn't until, like, through my teenage years that eventually I started getting bigger and I had enough of it and I fucking threw him down the stairs, caused a lot of damage.
Good.
Right, caused a lot of damage.
Good lad.
Caused my mum to disown me.
Wow.
So my mum, it's quite awkward though, for domestic violence case, my mum was the one that was always getting charged, not the guys, right? Because she's a fucking lunatic and she's fisty with her hands, like she's battered me many times, right? But it was a constant ongoing thing. One day I had enough and I used to get threatened and he used to beat me, and one day I just had enough, threw him down the fucking staircase, really damaged him, followed him downstairs, jumped all over him, got arrested, lots of problems, right? And as I grew up, as you know, I think I spoke about some of my history, like dealing things I shouldn't have been done, you know, getting in lots of trouble with the police, lots of this, that, and the other, kicked out of school, was very intelligent, top set double award for everything, but the teachers couldn't handle my level of attention, you know, they couldn't hold my attention, so I was a little shitbag. And my story was all my family, all my friends are in jail, they're all up to no good, so of course I'm going to do this. People are like, don't you want more for yourself? Like what? I come from poverty, I come from poor, I wouldn't be able to achieve this, I wouldn't be able to do that. And what was really fucking wild is, like, I become quite successful in doing the shit that I shouldn't be up to. At one stage I was importing, like, in clothes and trainers as another source. I had multiple businesses in a bad world, and it wasn't until, like, the kids come along and obviously the prison scare and a few other bits and bobs, I realised actually there's a lot more to life that I can do, and that's where obviously my
How
fitness
close
journey
were
started.
you to going go down?
I got a 4-year suspended sentence and 500 hours community service. What's really awkward is I spent 270 hours of that repainting my secondary school. So you can imagine going back to your secondary school and teachers going, "Told you, you're never going to amount to nothing." And it's really awkward because I earn their fucking yearly salary in a month now. So it's like, so like, but it's like, it's situations like that. But I used to have that whole mindset, but because I come from this, because I come from that, I'm never going to be able to achieve this, I'm never going to be able to do that. And sometimes I still fall into that, where sometimes I think it's all going to crumble because I come from this. Like, your past doesn't define fucking anything. Don't get me wrong, like, there's a lot of people that have absolute spoons, silver spoons, golden spoons in their mouth from the moment that they're born, and they're blessed with every single thing that there physically is, and they're just as mentally damaged as I once was, right? Because there's one little thing, catalyst trigger, that's caused them to have a problem. Mate, I've met people that are in their 40s that I've worked with that are so emotionally traumatized because their fucking parents got divorced when they was in their 20s. And I'm like, and I relate to them with a story, and I tell them some stuff, and they're like, "Oh my God, fuck me, it's never as bad as you." I was like, no, your feeling and your sensation is still relevant. It's a thought, it's something that you dealt with. It doesn't make me any, it's not a competition of like who's gone through worse and who's gone through little. You still have the same response, but it's like, how are you going to handle that? Like, when I was on Carl's podcast the other day, last week, we were speaking about, do I think therapy is a good thing? Therapy is obviously very relevant and very important in certain places, but therapy for me was a very negative experience after a while, because all it does is just kept me stuck in the past, kept me repeating the same shit, kept reminding me, kept me revisiting shit I didn't want to think or feel about anymore. And there was never any, like, it was always like, here's how you cope with feeling like that. Bitch, I don't want to cope, I want to excel. I don't want to be a victim, I want to be a victor. I want to fucking excel at life. I want to get ahead of this. I want to get past this, bury it in the dust, and fucking fly away from it.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep going for it and going, this is why you act like this. This is why you behave like this. I want to behave and act like this. How do I focus on that? And a lot of the therapists I work with, I've dealt with very different, diverse types, from NHS ones, which are fucking terrible, right? Private ones, like, different types of things. And it wasn't until I started working with, like, the likes of Paul and other people that are more proactive. It's like, if this is who you want to become, these are the actions that you've got to take, rather than if this is who you want to become, you need to stop being like this.
Yeah.
That didn't help me. That's not growth mindset. That's keeping you stuck in the past. That's keeping you reminding yourself of shit.
I think, yeah, mate, so many incredible points. And I think as well, one thing that's really important is, like, all of this level shit, and to be able to not leave yourself stuck there does take time. Like, it takes real time to learn how you work as a person, really on an individualistic level, by the way. Like, you and I could sit here till we're blue in the face saying, this is how we do this, and this is how we do this, and this is the habits that we incorporate in our lives to make sure that we feel and act a certain way. But you've got to listen to that as an individual and say, okay, that bit works, that bit works, that bit works, and then that allows me to move forward rather than get stuck, right? And one thing that you said there as well that I do want to reiterate, it reminds me of this really cool saying, is your biggest problem is your biggest problem.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you don't play it down. Like, your big, because obviously
You're very relevant. Thoughts are relevant.
Your childhood compared to my childhood, mate, I was so fucking lucky. And I actually remember sitting with my therapist when I was going through all this stuff, going, I don't know why I'm thinking like this. I've had a really fucking good life. Like, and she was like, yeah. So what are you going to do about it? And I was like, it's a really good question. Because I was just going through the same old circle of, I feel anxious. That means that this, that means that this, that means that this, that means that this. And don't get me wrong, there were some situations in my life that I needed to get a hold of, as we've already spoken about. Multiple things. I needed to get my shit together. I needed to work out what it was I wanted to get out of life. And then obviously, as soon as that trigger hit, as soon as that match hit the box, it was like, boom, he's off. Like, and obviously there's still work to do. And
do you
that's what I've found the most insane about all of this journey, is it's not where I'm at, it's the fucking things that I've done along the way to get where I'm at.
So you say as well is, like, like, we can speak about the habits that we do and the things that we do to help us. That's interchangeable, always.
Like,
there's habits and skill sets that I use that once served me like a few months ago that aren't really serving me as much now. They're tools. They're all just tools. They're tools in the toolbox. You've got just like a fucking typical fucking dad, has their tool belt and their little fucking thing that they put their phone in on their belt and all that weird shit, right? The dads, you imagine doing.
You got it.
But like, they've got their garage full of like their tools, different toolboxes, different things for different jobs, and they're in different areas for different things. Like, as in the personal development game, fat loss game, weight loss game, performance game, like business game, everything, you have these tools, and it's all about stacking all these tools inside of your toolbox and knowing what tools to implement at what stages. And there'll be certain times that, like, you don't need a fucking hammer, you need a fucking wrench. There's certain times you need a jackhammer. There's certain times you need a fucking nail gun. Like, you choose your tools wisely based upon what habits are you displaying. And sometimes the repetitive thing, especially for someone like myself on like such a high spectrum of ADHD and stuff like that, like, again, don't like labels, but like I understand myself. I'm aware of the way that I think and act, and rather than trying to fight against it, I work with it. Yeah. So I'm like, I know I become very numb to certain behaviors, like, and then I'll just like forget certain things. Certain things just suddenly stop serving me. So I have to change it up. And then I'll find something new that works for me for in that moment. And it constantly changes. It constantly evolves. And then sometimes I'm finding myself revisiting shit that used to work really well for me 6 months ago and it works again now. But it's rather than going, this isn't working anything well for me, I'm a failure. It's like, okay, cool. What about this isn't now working? What is it that I need to attach onto? What actions do I need to step? And it's just constantly being self-aware. And I think that's such a big thing that people don't understand. Like, I think sometimes when people get early on in a personal development journey, whether that's their fitness, mindset, whatever it is that we want to speak about, right? And let's really define mindset. Like, it's different for different people, right?
Yeah, it's such a it's a really popular word right now, isn't it?
Yeah, they just really like the mindset is like if you're working on your mental health because you feel low, like you're working on your mental health, like that's it's subcategories. Mindset is just like the same as the category is fitness. What
Could
is
be
fit?
confidence.
Yeah, exactly right. But what we want to look at is be like, at what gauges am I at? What stages, and what is doing too much and what is doing too little? What is serving me? Because sometimes like you'll find yourself using habits and tools and stacks and tricks, and when you actually look at what you're doing, sometimes you're doing too much, you know. And a lot, like you're saying there, like you had a great upbringing, but you felt a certain way. And then you get people like me, they're very not normal. Sometimes I actually don't realize how unnormal my childhood was because it was for most of my life until like I was in my early 20s, right? Until I speak to people and they're like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, why? Like, because it was the norm, but everyone around me was like that. Apart from my friends at school, they was all rich, and it was like, I didn't realize, like, my first ever holiday, for example, I went on when I was 13 years old. I got took by one of my best mate, Jake Edwards' mum, and she offered to take me to keep her son occupied because we were best mates. But she used to come to my house to pick me up all the time to, like, you know, stay over, hit there. They owned like a hotel, so like, you know,
yeah, nice.
Well off. We used to do stuff, and she's seen how bad my home life was, and the amount of time she'd pick me up, and there'd be fights and windows being broke, or she's actually picked me up at the house before, where my mum and her boyfriend at the time were actually having a straight up fist fight, and she took me from the house. And she's like, "You okay?" I was like, "Yeah, why?" And she was like, "Everyone at home?" I was like, "Yeah, it's a Monday. It's always like that on a Monday."
It's almost like the thing that comes to my mind is put a frog straight into a glass of boiling water, it'll jump straight out. If you slowly heat up a frog in a glass of water to boiling point, it just fucking sit there and not realize that it's being burnt.
Yeah.
And I wonder when. So for me, for example, put me in a fucking traumatic environment, household, I'll be like I'll be on edge. I'll notice everything that's going on around me. Like my fight or flight instinct rises straight up, and I'll be ready, right? Like, not in like a fisticuffs way.
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
know
just
you mean,
ready
yeah.
to fucking
Ready to
say
get.
something or get out. Yeah. Whereas you, because you were in that environment for so long, just
Mate, it's actually something I'm still working on massively now. Chaos for me is calm. Calm for me creates internal chaos. If things are calm, I don't have things to do, house is nice and chill, my brain is creating problems. For me, I used to obviously not sleep at night. I'd be woken up in the middle of the night because the boyfriend was fucking drunk and his football team lost and he's had a bad day and he's pissed off, so he wants to punch someone up, right? Or there'd be something like that. So I'd get woken up at 3 o'clock. So I was always on edge, fight or flight all the fucking time, right? All the time. Like, that was my life. And I still struggle with the sleep thing now, like, you know, this day and age. Like, for example, like for me to sleep, I actually require noise. Silence is a problem because if there's any pin drop noise in the middle of the night, bang, I'm fucking on it. Like, I'm on edge, heart's on one. Like, you know, it's very often for me to wake up with a heart rate of like 160. Like, because of like, boom, what the fuck's that noise? Like, ready to fucking just go like attack and do some mad shit, right? And like, so to go into that kind of like environmental space, I can go and sit in chaos and I feel calm. But the problem is I'm aware of how toxic it is for me. So, but sometimes it's like it's something that I'm really working on now, and it's such an exciting. It's gonna sound really fucking bizarre. It's really exciting putting myself in some really fucked up situations of discomfort because I love making myself feel uncomfortable at the moment because I've done so much uncomfortable shit that I know the best stuff comes off the back end of it. Like when I spoke at Lewis's event the other Friday in front of coaches. I'm speaking about something new, like in an authoritative space that I'm now in with the new business and stuff that I've been doing for years, but more behind the scenes.
Yeah,
bro.
congrats on that. Mate.
Thanks, man. And like, obviously, mate, you've done incredible work, and there's a lot of growth that you've done in the time that we've worked together, right? But everyone was asking me, like my partner and stuff. She was like, "Are you nervous? Are you anxious?" No. I had the same physiological responses of like your stomach goes a little bit weird, your mouth goes a bit gammy, you go a bit dry. But I wasn't nervous because I know the moment that I felt once that couple of seconds of discomfort's out of the way with, I'm going to feel sick and I'm going to own it because that's what I do best, right? But it's like I now like putting myself in situations that make me feel like shit, the stuff that I want to avoid, because I'm like, the quicker I get this over the way with, the quicker I get the rewards as a direct result of that.
Yeah, mate, I love it so much. And again, that I speak about this a lot on the pod, and people do speak to me. So I was master of ceremonies for my best mate's wedding a few weeks ago. Incredible day, and essentially it just made like they utilized my skill of you're going to be the host essentially of the wedding, microphone, introduce different things, blah blah blah. And so many people would come up to me and they would go like, "You're literally a natural. Are you not nervous?" And I'd be like, "Well, of course. You think before the first time you speak on the mic." Yeah, I could say something like out of turn, or I could bumble my words. But what is the worst case scenario? You make a couple of people laugh, and yeah, you may make a mistake, but nobody's going to remember that. Like when everybody's had 8 beers at the end of the night, and I think that's the difference between becoming confident and being confident. You have to go through, like you were saying there, like you have to go through that feeling of nerves to then get the confidence at the end of it because you've overcome them. And the biggest thing for me right now, one of the biggest, like if we're thinking about goals for the next 3 months for me, is I'm on another new journey with getting football fit, being fit. Like I can run a marathon. I've done an ultra marathon, and I used to be 23 stone. I'm now 50 and a half, whatever it is. Like that's cool. But to go from playing grassroots football to senior football, I now have to do another journey. And like yesterday, we went for a 3K run. I'm on a bit of a tangent right now. We went for a 3K run, and with lads that have played this level already, and they're like, I mean, it was a fast run, but it was like 7.5 minute miles, and that is like, I was like, fuck me. I kept up with them though, mate. Like, and I was like, holy fucking shit. But even when I go to training still, I've been to like 4 or 5 training sessions, maybe 6 now. It's lessened, but that first one I went to, all of those thoughts, am I going to be good enough? Are they going to like me? Is there anyone there that I'm going to speak to? Am I going to be able to show what I'm good at? Am I going to be like all of any self-doubt thought I had that I could have had going to those training sessions to begin with? I don't mind speaking about this out loud. I had, right? And then you go, you keep turning up, you tell yourself a couple times, or maybe you could just sit this one out and watch the fucking 8 o'clock Euros game on the TV, blah, blah, blah. And then you're 6 sessions in, and last night, I'd make a mistake or like do something that I'd get frustrated with, shrug it off, carry on. And that is how you go from nerves and not having confidence to creating it. And it's by putting those little actions in, like you've done with different podcast appearances, all of these businesses you've built, all of these talks you've done, to a point now where you can go and speak authoritatively at Lewis's event and whoever else's events that you've got coming up and go, yeah, I may feel slightly, I'm thinking about what could go wrong, but I know if I have put enough work in that I'm going to get these results at the end of it.
So the beginning of what we spoke about when we started off is about questions.
Yeah.
This is the thing that I always ask myself. Is this going to require more energy from me sitting there worrying, being nervous and trying to put it off? Is that going to require more energy than just doing it?
Yeah.
If I have to sit there and think about all the problems and all the fears and all this, and I'm nervous, and what if they don't like it, or what if I stumble, or if I chat shit, or what if I that, if that requires more energy and it outweighs like the whole fucking process of what it is, like, and it's something that stuck with me. Can't remember if you and me actually spoke about this before as well, and it was about Barack Obama. Right, I'm not political. I'm not into anything in any way, shape, or form. Right, but there was something that was said about him and how he makes decisions. He only needs to be 51% certain before he says yes to something.
Ooh, interesting.
Because in his head, he's leading a nation, and he's got to make a decision with the best information that he has possibly in front of him. So even if it's only 51%, he will make a decision because he cannot delay making a decision. So he will make a decision based upon what information is presented and best to him. 51%.
My best trait.
yeah. But that's what he said. It's about making a decision fast. I guess one of my problems is I make decisions far too fast sometimes, right? But I love that whole, you've only got to be 51% right. Because the next situation, let's say like you are fucking wrong or you do lead into the wrong direction. The next thing you just need to be 51% right with, you know, as long as you're moving forward. And just to have one nice big time with the whole mental health thing, human beings do not survive or thrive in stagnant water, right? You need to be flowing like a fucking river. You need to be moving upstream. You need to be fucking moving in a direction. Doesn't necessarily matter what direction that is a lot of the time, but you need to be fucking moving. If you are not leveling up somewhere, think about children going through school, growing up. People didn't struggle with a lot of stuff, nowhere near as much. Yeah, we're obviously, our brains are developing right up until we're 26, and there's like a whole host of other different things to go alongside that. But what you're doing, you're learning, you are stimulating your brain. Our body think what happens to old people when they essentially cark it. Most of the time it's because they stop fucking moving. Inactivity fucking kills most of them, right? Like they fall over, hurt themselves. Now they're not moving. Everything else starts to shut down. Our brain's kind of no different. The moment you stop utilize that whole phrase, you don't use it, you fucking lose it. Stop stimulating your brain. Stop trying to grow. Stop trying to improve. Stop trying to level up. You're just going to fucking become an absolute mush in your head. Do you know what I mean? And that's where problems arise.
Yeah, man.
You know, you have to be flowing. You have to be leveling up. You have to be moving forward. You can either sit there moaning about your problems, putting energy into moaning about problems, or you can put that same level of energy into at least trying to overcome it. Yeah, you might fuck up, but you learn from it quickly.
I think on that note, for me, one of the not biggest realizations I've had recently, but one of the ones that's sticking out to me the most is the whole really deep conversation. It could go into a deep conversation, but the meaning of life, right?
Oh, fuck me.
But no. I'm in my.
Should we go take some mushrooms?
I'm in my philosophical era. Yeah. But no, I don't mean that in a wanky way. I'm just saying, it's about growth. It's about falling in love with a journey that is enabling you to become a better version of yourself on a fucking daily, if not regular basis. And like you say, as soon as you reach that lake that's stagnant and you don't feel like you're putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, or you don't feel like you're learning anything, is the days where you are putting yourself at the most risk of becoming mentally challenged by your fucking self.
Yeah, mate. Think about it, like stagnant water, right? Stinks,
mate.
It's fucking horrible. It looks minting. It's murky. It's cloudy.
Algae.
What the fuck happens to your brain when it's like that?
Yeah.
When you're stagnant, you're doing anything. Your brain is fucking horrendous. It's murky. It's cloudy. You can't think. It's not clear. Yeah. Go to like fucking Snowdon. Go look at all the fucking rivers and everything around that. They're running water. They're running streams. Right. It's clear as fuck. Use that analogy and run with it when it comes to the way that your brain is.
It creates beauty, mate.
Mate. Yeah. Like your brain requires stimulation. Like I've got a bit of a routine there I've not been doing for a while, and it's something that I've had to remember and go back into a habit that really works for me. Because of the way that my life's been set up recently, I've been having to wake up and get straight into work. That is a terrible thing for me. I'm super creative and super energetic, and I need stimulation when I first wake up, right? My best days are spent when I wake up, I do some form of reading, some form of education, some form of playing a game, some form of like creativity.
Yeah, you like banging your cod on or something, don't you?
Yeah. I go and do things like that first because that actually helps me stimulate my brain in a positive space that's for me. It helps me create actions that almost semi-unwind me so I can focus. I wake up and my brain is chaos. So I guide it by stimulating, feeding it what it needs essentially. Then I get into guided work and I can focus. If I start my day, wake up, prime example of this, right? If you got woken up fucking drastically and fucking shook, you're on edge. Everything's fucking on edge, right? Most people start their day like that. They fucking wake up, they neck a coffee, they fucking get out the house, they go to work, they go and do that, and you wonder why you're an anxious fucking stressed mess all day. Get up earlier, not to go hit a gym workout or go get your fucking step. Even if you just fucking got up a little bit earlier, just to do something to calm your brain.
People in the gym pre-6 o'clock, fucking psychopaths.
Mate, yeah. To be fair, I was that fucker for years, right? But what I'm saying is, like, if people just spent time waking up in their morning to sit in stillness, you don't have to be hippie-like or meditate or be in this fucking, hot boy era.
That's us.
But yeah. But it's sitting there with a level of stillness to let your brain just like breathe, paying attention to it. Mate, that'll fucking do wonders in all areas of your life.
Mate, we're rolling up to the hour mark, which is this has flown, and I don't know whether it's because I've had a Costa and a fucking Monster in the space of the last 90 minutes.
The crack I slipped in
there. But what I want to do is just tie it all the way back to the point of today's pod. We've touched on it a few times. The childhood upbringing you've had was crazy, and in comparison to mine, and you've enabled yourself to go on to create this mindset, create these businesses, have impact on thousands of people's lives through choice. And I think that is, for me, when I think about all of these things, when we're asking ourselves questions around what would the star of my movie do, all of those really powerful questions you can ask yourself, what would the person that you are trying to become do when it comes to your shopping and whatnot. But if you was to say, what was the number one thing that stopped you from getting stuck in victim mode and blaming things on your past, what was the number one thing you did that enabled you to do that?
I had to make it not about me. This is how I really like. Even to this day, I'm very bad at serving me. But like I spoke about last time, and we touched on earlier, my biggest kind of like motto is leave people better than I found them.
Yeah, man.
Because even when I went through all the struggles and the shit that I was dealing with, which was fucking horrendous, I took it like a champ, right? As good as you could do in a situation like that, anyways, right? But I would still be trying to look after my brothers and make sure that they're okay, especially with one of my brothers being Asperger's ridden, like practically non-verbal half the time, right? Like I had people that still relied on me to show up to make sure they were. I had to cover them and hide them from the shit going on in life, right? Hence why at 21, social services fucking gave them to me, and they excelled within the year that I had them, and the whole story of that, and we spoke about that last time around, is
You did, mate. Yeah,
but I always had
unreal.
that whole thing is like the thing that helped me initially was I had to attach a value to something that was much bigger than myself, which was leave people better than I find them. So even when I feel like shit, how can I just smile at someone, make them feel better? Even if someone's an incredible person, like even like yourself, and happy and smiling and anything like that, like when I meet you one day, how can I make like compliment you, say something to you, smile at you, even just be in your presence, have a conversation with you, listen to you. That's me leaving you better than I find you, regardless of what situation. Leaving someone better than you find them doesn't always mean that they have to be in a bad place. They can be in a great place, and you can leave them better. And by attaching the value of that to myself as an anchor point, as a vision to be like, who do I want to become? I want to be the person that when people meet me, when people see me, they don't just forget about me.
Mm.
And I don't want them to remember me from an egotistic, oh, Brad's amazing perspective.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, he made me feel good. He made me think. He made me see something differently.
Change this. Blah,
So it's
blah.
why I can't help myself but give value every time I can. Sometimes it's unwarranted value, and I try and be careful with that. But I just can't help but like, if I feel like I can offer a value to someone or an insight, I was like, I can't fucking help it. Like, I'm not going to shut my mouth because I would then not be true to myself. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, for me, that was something I attached onto, and I adopted that very early on without realizing it. I was trying to figure out what it was, and I was just trying to make people feel better because I know it's made me feel better. And then as time goes on, I really understood that actually, like, I value that and it makes me feel good. I adopted that behavior. Now that's something every day my actions are like when I'm dealing with someone. We actually spoke about this, and this is the final point about sometimes I deal with people that are in bad places and they're so stuck in a certain way that I am willing to be the catalyst and the person that triggers a fucking angry response in that person by saying something that they need to hear but they don't want to hear it.
Challenge it.
They might block me. They might call me a cunt. They might do whatever. But then I've had people unblock me in the future and thank me for being honest and true to them, because for me to leave somebody better than I find them isn't always a positive experience from my behalf. I sometimes need to be a catalyst to change, and that's again something that I will sit by and stick by, hence why my nickname is a cunt but a caring cunt.
Yeah, mate, you certainly are that. Mate, we did the whole traditional finisher on the last pod, which is the greatest bit of advice you've ever been given. There's another question that I'd love to ask. You're on 100% podcast, and Hannah, actually, on her second appearance on the show when we spoke about the marathon, got asked this. But you're on 100% podcast. My vibe is all about being as close to 100% as you possibly can be. And I know you're on a spectrum, bro, and you go from here, there, left, right, fucking up, down, center. But if you was to say 3 habits that you do on a daily basis, with or without knowing that you do them, to make you feel 100%, what are they?
Oh, fuck. One of them is, mate, it's all revolves around question. Like, how do I feel that day? Like, what is gonna? I kind of treat myself like a bit of a business. What can I do today to move me forward?
Class.
What can I do to maintain myself today?
Yep.
What can I do to nurture myself moving forward? So what I mean by that is, like, what can I do to move forward? What actions can I take to work towards my physical fitness, my mental fitness, my business like development, whatever that may be? What can I do to maintain myself today? Do something that I love. Do something that's going to make me feel great. Something that's going to do that. Something that's going to help me out in the future. So maybe doing some tasks that need to be done later on. Like, a bit hard to give examples because it's on a different day, but I always think of like my current self, tomorrow's self, and future self. And as long as I'm always doing something in each one of them categories, like, I'm going to move forward. Same with like the business, which I teach with a lot of the coaches, is you need to do stuff that's going to generate new business, new clients, essentially today and immediately. The stuff that's going to maintain the people that you currently have, look after the current people that you have, and nurturing the potential clients that you could potentially be helping in the future. I kind of adopt that same philosophy with personal life, with business life, and everything. Yeah.
Unreal, man. That's so fucking good. And I have to say, I said it at the start, this was always going to be better than the first podcast we did. Better relationships, better understanding face to face and whatnot. Been unbelievable, mate. Just value all the way through this hour-long episode. Where can people come and find out more about Bradley Rix if they want to online?
To be fair, the best possible place currently is Bradley Rix on Facebook or
Sound.
Body Drop Brad on Instagram.
Perfect. If you have enjoyed today's episode with me and Brad Rix, you can go over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and drop a 5-star review. It does go a long way to helping the show out on the podcast side of things. And if you are watching on YouTube, hello, our handsome faces would love you to click the like and subscribe button below, because on the algorithm movement on YouTube, again, it really does help. I'll see you here with a new episode every Friday. Take care.